now going to move away slightly from offshore wind energy towards marine renewables with our next panel, which is on what's needed for wave and tidal energy to go through the roof. And to get to the bottom of that, I'll be talking to Jonathan Hodges, Drew BLAXLAND, Jérôme GUERET, and Olivier GUIRAUD. Hello. Good morning. Just grab a microphone, sorry.
I'll meet you, but I don't.
Four. Olivier, Jonathan, everybody, Drew. Hello. Good morning. Hello, how are you?
Good. How about you?
Bonjour. No, you can pick a chair. Hi.
Hello, Jérôme. Nice to meet you.
Would you like to have a seat? Would you like to have a seat? Yeah? And maybe grab a microphone. Yeah?
Two.
Do we have enough microphones? Sorry. Olivier? There you go. Thank you. So Jonathan Hodges, hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. You are Managing Director at Wave Energy Scotland. What's your answer to that question? What's needed for wave and tidal energy to take off?
It's a big question, isn't it? For context, Wave Energy Scotland runs innovation programs on behalf of the Scottish Government and the European Commission. So my main answer is about innovation support. But before we get into the details of innovation support, it's clear that innovation support on its own isn't going to deliver this dreaming big. Alongside innovation support, we need finance, we need supply chain, and we need projects. And those happen to be the four pillars of a new marine energy task force set up by the UK government recently. So it's clear that those are the priorities in terms of what's needed to make these sectors kick off. And the influence of those things flows back. The supply chain needs the signal from the projects need the finance, all of them need the technology, so all of them need the support in order to push things forward. But focusing perhaps more on my own area of innovation support, and particularly publicly funded innovation support, it's important to remember that within wave and tidal, and within each of those, the technologies are at different stages. So tidal energy, we now have tidal energy developers who have been demonstrating and operating full-scale devices in commercial conditions for many years, showing the performance, showing the reliability, which is really exciting to see. But then some tidal developers and many wave energy developers are at earlier stages of demonstration. So some of them are at full scale and are looking to access market support, revenue support mechanisms. Others are at large scale but need to progress to full scale. Those that need to progress to full scale need very, very focused innovation support that can allow them to make the big jump to full commercial scale devices, deliver the subsystems, deliver the reliability and the performance they need to demonstrate that. And I think there are some that need more fundamental research, but really what's important now from an innovation support perspective is to really focus the limited public funds available on the key challenges so that we can take those technologies that are looking most promising at the moment up to full scale and follow in the footsteps of these tidal developers that have demonstrated at full scale.
Now, we're asking that question today, what's needed for wave and tidal energy to go through the roof? But we've been asking that question for quite a while. Do you think, nevertheless, that progress has been made? We're getting there slowly.
Absolutely. And again, I'll give it examples of within wave and tidal, because as I say, tidal developers have shown years of great experience of devices working, which is a massive amount of progress over the years. Perhaps when we look at wave, perhaps we need to look a little bit deeper below the water to understand the progress. We have got devices being demonstrated at full scale, for example, a core power device being demonstrated in Portugal. Then we've got an array of different devices at earlier stages. From Scotland, we've got the motion energy coming up for large scale, and then we've got 3 technologies that are going to be demonstrated through the European-funded EuropeWave program towards the end of next year. The motion energy device in Scotland, and then 2 devices to be demonstrated at large or full scale in the BMEP test site in the Basque Country. So the obvious progress is seen in devices, the things that people will be able to see floating or subsea in the water. But I think we need to look beyond that into the array of subsystems that are being brought forward through staged development processes. We need to look at the processes themselves, because we've made massive progress in the improvement of the way that we fund these technologies, using stage-gated approaches to be able to manage and reduce the technical and financial risk and bring these technologies forward. That's not as visible to the public or the wider industry, so being able to show that those subsystems are being demonstrated effectively is important. The processes themselves, I think, knowing that technologies have come through a very rigorous development process helps to improve the confidence in future private investors. And one of our objectives, and most public funds' objective, is to lead this technology to the point where we're moving from public funding into private investment. And that's an area we're seeing progress as well. Clearly in tidal, and the rest of the panelists here, but also in wave, where many technology developers are getting private investment or are finding traction in stepping stone markets or alternative markets where private investors such as the oil and gas industry are willing to use alternative sources of energy such as wave to power their offshore activities.
Talking about how things have been evolving, this is not the first time you're joining us. We had the pleasure to welcome you a few years back, and at the time you were talking about multi-use projects, so the projects that combine offshore wind energy and wave energy. At the time, I remember that you said that developers were not really that enthusiastic. Has that changed today?
It's a really interesting thing. So a few years ago, we did a study into opportunities for sharing space, supply chain, and infrastructure between wave and floating wind, knowing that floating wind is moving into higher wave energy resources into the north and west. That study showed massive opportunity for cost reduction by sharing space and infrastructure, export cables, anchors, all kinds of infrastructure. So we started to engage the floating wind sector, but quite predictably, the floating wind sector is focused on delivery of massive offshore floating wind projects. They're not ready for this next level of sharing of space. Clearly, it's an exciting destination, but I think there's quite a long journey to get to it. And I think that journey has to take us to a point where it's attractive to wind developers to share that space with co-location, or it's incentivized by governments to make that happen. There's a journey to go along. And I think it's clear that wave energy and floating wind is perhaps one of the longer-term opportunities. We need to demonstrate the commercial wave energy technology first, and then we need to look at the opportunities for co-location. But there are nearer-term, lower-risk, more deliverable opportunities for co-location and multi-use. Floating solar, offshore hydrogen, lots of opportunities for putting things in the same area as each other. And there are different examples where either governments are, such as the Netherlands, for example, where the leasing process almost requires a co-location of multiple technologies. That's a positive signal. In Scotland, the leasing process is more reactive to the requirements of governments and policy, and we don't yet have that incentivization for multi-use. But if we can work together on the opportunity for multi-use rather than specifically co-location of wind and wave, then I think we can make a journey through the different applications, through the different combinations, and get to the point where we can reduce the risk, we can see the benefits, and we can incentivize that.
Do you think that would be the one factor that would push these technologies into the commercial stage area?
I wouldn't say it's the one factor. I think we need to be able to demonstrate wave technology on its own as a commercial opportunity, but it's one of the steps on the route to it. And it seems like a sensible destination in terms of efficient use of the sea space we have and efficient use of that space to generate as much as possible in terms of electricity and financial returns.
Among the wave energy projects that are moving forward, are those developed by you, Drew, BLAXLAND? Hello, yes. Oh no, sorry. Tidal, I'm sorry.
It's all right, close.
My mistake. You're a CEO of Proteus. Can you also develop wave energy, please? What's your answer to how to bring about a boom in this market?
Yeah, I mean, Tuesday morning optimism, I'd say the boom's already here, but it sort of goes back to Jonathan's point that it's here for some of us that have started a long time ago. That includes Proteus. And it's a relative boom relative to where we were 10 years ago. Proteus has been around in one shape or form for nearly 20 years, going through those stages of proving technology, understanding the challenges, all that guff. Yeah. Whereas now we're in a space with, 100 megawatts worth of tidal on the order books, 3 countries now active. You're definitely in the next space. But there's a 3-phase before I'd call it a boom, and we're only in phase 2. We have a project in Maygen, obviously, which is still the world's largest consented array at 59 megawatts. And that has the support of the British government with the CFDs. You have Japan slowly stepping into probably bronze medal position in the race to be the sort of global leader in tidal, and we've just put a turbine in the water there that's been consented to grid, working day-on-day basis in Japan. I wouldn't call that a boom, but I'd call it a big step. And very much our focus at the moment is France. I think France is in a fantastic position to really take tidal up and leverage off all that learning. With a couple of key developers in France that they're looking towards getting the next 30 meg, the first 30 megs in the water, and then also the PPE for the next 250. Europe's target of a gigawatt by 2030, I'd like to think can still be at least a gigawatt in concept as opposed to in the water. But and when that gigawatt starts construction, I'll say the boom is here.
In these countries, also in France, obviously, money is one of the most important issues. Oh, you brought, of course. Can we see the slides? No?
Is that going to come
Very
up?
nice to see you as well. But do you think there's money available for these projects in France and elsewhere nowadays?
I do. I'm just wondering why that's not coming up there, but never mind.
I don't know. Oh, there we go.
Okay.
We've got a video.
It should just be without sound, but if the sound comes on, I'll be quiet. There is money available. I think the financial landscape has changed significantly. But again, we're in phase 2, not phase 3. We still need what I'd call sympathetic equity, and that's around now. If you look at, we raised 50-odd million pounds back in 2014 for Maygen. That took a significant input from government. If you look at what ourselves and HydroQuest have done in France, Innovation Fund, it still needs that support, the French government as well. But you've got a proper mix of what I'd call quasi-project debt, and that sympathetic equity is now looking at, wait a minute, you guys are going towards a gigawatt, 2 gigawatts. I'm now interested in getting involved. We're not at what I'd call phase 3, which is, your classic pension funds getting involved. But we are at that space now where a number of banks, quangos between private and public enterprise, are looking at ways of funding this. And the biggest support to that is obviously the feed-in tariff support that the British government's doing, the French government is working on, and that allows a reasonable investment return on the equity. So yes, I would say compared to 15 years ago, it's a significantly different landscape, but we're not quite there yet.
Yeah, I was going to say we're not at the commercial stage just yet.
That's right.
Lovely pictures, by the way. Very distracted. What would you say are the main hurdles for you that are in the way towards that commercial stage?
I don't think there's any massive ones for us. There's certainly no technical ones. It's now about taking a product. We've just had the EIB validate our cost of energy curve. That was always a big impediment for previous financing, because you draw these lovely curves and they'd say, okay, you're just following the wind curve. How do you know you're actually going to get there? And until you do, you can't actually ever answer that question. But we're able to show now tangible evidence again, because of time in the water and data, that we can get to these cost of energies, which is key. So I don't think that's as big as impediment was. The hurdles are around things like guarantees, warranties. Balance sheet warranties you've still got a large, when you start getting up to 200 megawatts, 100 megawatts, you're talking about balance sheet warranties at least $500 million. So that is where I'd see the jump in the gap, the next boom coming. So that and insurance. Insurance is still way too expensive in this market. There's a big misperception between what's reality in the ocean in a difficult tidal environment and what they think it is. So I think, insurance, the financing side, is still the biggest hurdle.
Well, we luckily have an investor with us who can talk about that. Thank you for taking that train. We had a little train issue here. And I'm very glad to welcome you here in Paris. You're a managing partner at non-based investment fund, Go Capital, sorry for that. How would you say the tidal energy market has changed since its early days from an investor's perspective?
It has really changed since 10 years, actually, or 15 years, as you say. Just to give you some background, I was one of the first investors in the tidal sector in 2013 at a stage of de-risking the technology when I invested in Sabella in France, as you know, which is one of the first tidal systems that has been de-risked in the past 10 years. We absolutely need to understand what was the situation of this market in Europe and France in 2012 and right now, which is quite different. In 2012, there is about 10 huge corporate companies in Europe investing in the tidal technologies, trying to de-risk what they have to do. DCNRs, Alstom, Rolls-Royce, all those companies were working under a regulation that was clearly positive, trying to move forward in these technologies with political support of Europe and France, if we consider the country. 2 years after our investment, we have a big breakdown in this sector. All the huge investment has been shut down. DCNS shut down after 200 million investment. Alstom shut down after 200 million investment. Rolls-Royce stopped, and so on. And this is due mainly to 2 or 3 things that are very important in an investor point of view. When we invest in a company, we take some risk. It is a business, but reasonable risk or reasonable bet. The first one is people. So that's maybe the things that we know how to do or to change. The second is technology. We do take some bet on technology. The third one is market, and the fourth one is regulation. Concerning tidal, people are there, and we are one of the best engineers in Europe. This is technology that we know how to run into the market. The technology is mature. Globally, we know how to put a tidal under the water at 50 meters under the water, and it works. The tidal from Sabella is still working, was still working at the end of last year, after 4 years, without any intervention, because the company was dead. So there is no intervention. The turbine was still running and delivering electricity on the market. So it works. The third one is the market. There is no market at the time. And there is no market because we have a problem of price. So what we will have to do is to understand if this technology is useful on the market or not. And at that time, we do not have that answer in my perspective. And the last one is regulation. And this is key. We have a government that do not know anywhere where it goes. It changes every 2 years its position concerning that kind of innovation. So we are investing a lot of money, taking it off, taking it in, off, in, off. And the PPE is not on the market today. And it's still not in the market. And where you are getting, and the reason why the PPE didn't work 10 years ago, it is exactly the same thing. We have people that do not know what they do when they decide how to modify the regulation system in France and Europe. So we need to have some experts working on the system and not politics.
That does sound incredibly positive. Do you think?
I'm sorry, I want to stay positive in what I say, but we need to be also, if we want to dream big, and we are talking about finance, if we want to dream big, we are to stay stuck to reality. And reality doesn't work on that subject. It doesn't work anywhere also on water system. It doesn't work anywhere also on storage system. We have many difficulties on the way to move forward on industrial perspective in Europe. So we just want to be stuck on reality when we want to move forward, because if we do not take into account reality, we lose, as we did, around 50 million euros. It's big. And we lose 10 years, and we lose 93 patents.
And if we come back to that question, what's needed for wave and tidal to go through the roof?
Yeah.
What's your answer to that?
I think that this is the two subjects I was talking just before. The two things that we have to tackle is market and regulation. This is the two things that we need to tackle. The technology is on. Our business is to bring technology to the market, but then the market, when we're talking about wind farms, no, we have an LCOE that is correct to the market and acceptable to the market. So the whole finance industry is coming on. It's a private business. Nothing to say about it. It's a private business. You move forward, you develop some technologies, and let's go forward. Concerning tidal, we need to understand what the market is. Actually, the question is a question of perspective. If we think in a 5-year period of time, like it is a political point of view, then there is no market. If you think of what we have to do in a period of 20 years concerning climate change, and if you had what is happening in Europe as sovereignty today, we need tidal energy, because we will not have any electricity sufficient to cover the needs of the transformation to the net zero. We need local energy, we need predictable energy, and we need an energy mix that is sufficient to cover all the need when we need it. Tidal adds some benefits that other technologies do not have. So we need to integrate that some energies will cost higher, but are useful to the energy mix. And when we say that nuclear power, I'm getting back to what Anna said this morning, when you have some politics saying that nuclear power will be sufficient to solve the problem, it's a foolish. Absolutely. When we say that we will be able to develop a new nuclear technology within a period of 15 years, which is said by our president, 15 years to develop a new technology in a nuclear plant, it's foolish. It never works. It took 25 years to have the second generation of up here, and it does not work. And we never know the price of the megawatts getting out of this. So if we want to make the climate transition, we need to make it with what we have in our hands. And what we have in our hands is nuclear, as it is, a new solution on renewable energies. And tidal is in. So it's a question of price, an acceptable price, and it's a question also of regulation. We need to fix it and discover that regulation is key if we want to invest and convince investors to come for 10 years or 20 years.
Do you think the EU is going to play a very important role?
The EU? Yeah, they play well, very well. You know, EU is not a political matter. Sometimes we make some, we have some regrets that EU is something very technocratic. But something is good in technocracy. It is that it is scientists and people who know the business that define the rules. So EU is defining rules that are stable in the time. This is the main thing that we need, stable rules. And we also need to have finance to de-risk the technology from the early beginning to the market. So they did it. When you know what has been done to kick energy, when you know what is done with grants given by the EU all over Europe for this kind of technology, they are doing well. Not enough, but they are doing well, I think.
Olivier, GUIRAUD, bonjour.
Oui, bonjour.
Vous m'entendez?
Oui, oui,
Ok,
oui.
très bien.
Ça va être le moment français.
Oui, en français, je sais. Vous êtes le directeur... Merci. Vous êtes le directeur Business Development chez le développeur français Qair. Et en fait, parlant de l'Union européenne, vous avez eu récemment des bonnes nouvelles pour votre ferme pilote hydrolienne Flowatt de 17 MW, n'est-ce pas?
Absolument. Nous avons eu, depuis le SEANERGY l'année dernière, il y a eu quand même quelques jalons de passé sur ce projet. Nous avons, alors il y a eu l'Union européenne, nous avons gagné un Innovation Fund, ça c'est plus récent, mais quand même, précédemment, nous avons été signataires d'une convention de financement avec l'ADEME, donc dans le cadre d'un appel à projet où nous avions répondu, où nous avons sécurisé des subventions et des avances remboursables à hauteur de 75 millions et un tarif d'achat de l'énergie produite. Ça c'est important parce que c'est ce qui fait tenir l'ensemble de l'édifice debout. Et nous sommes allés chercher un complément de subvention auprès de l'Union européenne dans le cadre de l'Innovation Fund, comme mon voisin d'ailleurs, où nous avons été lauréats du même Innovation Fund. Et c'est bien pour l'hydrolien en général, puisque ça faisait un petit moment que nous allions à des guichets européens, mais nous n'avions jamais été, en tout cas pour les projets français, lauréats. Et donc là, ça a été une vraie première. Donc 20 millions d'euros de subventions en plus sur ce projet, c'était un vrai, voilà, c'est un vrai plus maintenant qui nous met dans de bonnes dispositions pour pouvoir, eh bien, nous-mêmes en tant qu'actionnaires apporter nos fonds propres aux côtés d'Hydrocoest, notre co-actionnaire dans ce projet-là, et nous l'espérons venir attirer des banques pour faire la partie financement, emprunt, financement de projets sans recours, puisque c'est bien l'objectif de ces projets pilotes, c'est essayer de faire comme si on était dans la vraie vie. Voilà. Malgré les risques, malgré tout.
Il est en train d'essayer de vous convaincre. Et quel est le planning de votre projet donc?
Alors aujourd'hui, donc comme je viens de l'expliquer, nous avons sécurisé la partie amont, les compléments en subvention, tarif d'achat. C'est un projet qui aujourd'hui est full permitted, enfin totalement autorisé. Donc on a encore quelques petits jalons, puisque pour les aides d'État de l'État français, il faut que nous passions les jalons de notification à la Commission européenne pour que ces aides soient validées comme étant conformes au droit européen. Donc ça c'est voilà, mais elles le sont, donc c'est juste une formalité, c'est juste du temps, on va dire ça. Donc on en est là. Ensuite on va avoir, une fois que cette validation aura eu lieu, nous allons avoir une phase un petit peu plus administrative avec l'État français pour avoir l'arrêté tarifaire pour la revente de notre énergie produite. Et donc ça devrait nous mener à la fin de l'année, voire début d'année prochaine, et on prévoit un closing financier pour le premier trimestre 2026.
Quels sont les autres projets sur lesquels vous travaillez à plus long terme?
Alors sur le tidal, sur l'hydrolien, quand même, ça reste un projet important pour nous. Alors, car on fait d'autres activités, mais sur l'hydrolien, Flowatt est une priorité aujourd'hui. Évidemment, on regarde ce qui se passe en UK. Ça reste le plus gros gisement, le plus gros potentiel d'Europe. UK va être clé dans l'avenir. It's potential around 11-12 gigawatts. You can be the leader for all the industry. It's just incredible. Et si vous voulez, on va se concentrer là-dessus, réussir ce premier projet, faire un financement de projet là-dessus. Mon voisin le confirmera, ça va pas être facile. D'ailleurs, je vous invite à venir prendre un ticket pour voir comment ça se passe et commencer à vous accoutumer au risque et nous aider à financer ce type de projet, parce que fiabilité des technos, financement de projets avec des banques commerciales. Et dernière brique qui va nous manquer, qui est en cours de discussion aujourd'hui et on est un peu énervé, c'est la PPE. Qui donne la visibilité long terme dont vous parliez tout à l'heure, la perspective dont on a besoin. Donc on a aujourd'hui une PPE qui annonce un premier appel d'offres à horizon 2028 de 250 MW. Ça c'est bien, ça nous va bien. Avec il a été évoqué 5 gigawatts plus tard, à horizon de 2030, mais nous avons un projet de loi en parallèle, le projet de loi Grémillet, qui aujourd'hui fait disparaître un petit peu l'hydrolien de cette carte, même s'il va rester dans la PPE. Il n'y a quand même pas d'engagements qui sont pris au travers de cette loi en termes de chiffres objectifs et de perspectives long terme, qui est quand même quelque chose d'essentiel pour qu'on puisse se projeter sur d'autres projets. Ça, c'est essentiel. Donc pour l'instant, float, en tidal, d'autres projets si on a une perspective.
D'autres projets hydroliens aussi. Hydrolien.
Voilà. Après, on fait autre chose, mais hydrolien.
Donc pour vous, en fait, il y a vraiment des raisons de croire dans cette technologie.
Alors oui, si on est là, c'est qu'on y croit, hein, sinon on ne serait pas là. Non, c'est important dans la démarche du développeur. Comme l'a dit mon voisin, notre métier, c'est de prendre du risque, mais du risque calculé, un minimum. Alors, pourquoi on est arrivé là? C'est parce qu'une rencontre d'abord, une rencontre avec les équipes d'HydroQuest qui nous ont présenté une technologie. Technologie qu'on ne regardait pas nativement, enfin qu'on ne s'intéressait pas à l'hydrolien. Vous l'avez mentionné, il y a eu des échecs de projets passés, c'est pas une bonne image, compliqué. Mais bon, donc ils nous ont présenté une technologie, ils venaient de faire un premier prototype, donc OceanQuest. Le premier prototype, il marche plutôt bien même. 100% de disponibilité, et donc du coup, on a regardé en détail ce que pouvait être le devenir de cette technologie. Donc on a un petit peu gratté. Technologie scalable. Voilà, du 1 MW, on peut facilement passer, donc ce qu'on va faire sur Flowatt, 2,8 MW unitaire, et les équipes d'HydroQuest travaillent déjà sur une 5 MW. Donc là, je pense qu'on est déjà dans de bonnes dispositions pour se dire scalabilité, donc baisse des coûts, industrialisation. Alors quand on est un développeur, c'est quelque chose qui est important. Et puis, développeur, mais pas que, nous sommes un IPP, producteur indépendant d'électricité, donc on est allé regarder le profil de production de ce machin qui est juste fabuleux, incroyable. On a une énergie renouvelable qui est prévisible. On sait quand ça démarre, quand ça s'arrête, tous les jours de l'année, à l'heure près, à la seconde près, pour les 100 prochaines années si vous voulez. Et en plus, c'est extrêmement cyclique et ça décale d'1 heure tous les jours. Donc ça veut dire que ma marée montante, mon étal, marée descendante, ça c'est mes pics de production et ainsi de suite, ils vont décaler et je couvre toujours les moments où on a besoin d'électricité sur le marché. C'est une énergie baseload. Et ça, c'est juste incroyable pour une énergie renouvelable. C'est du nucléaire en fait. C'est le nucléaire du renouvelable. Et donc ça finit de nous convaincre parce qu'on pense que cette énergie-là, elle ne se voit pas dans le paysage, elle coche énormément de cases, de défauts qu'ont les autres renouvelables. Et donc on était obligé d'y aller, quoi. Voilà. Et nous y voilà.
Il est un peu mort de rire, ça me fait rire. Bon.
I fully agree. There is many benefits on this technology, except the fact that it's very costly and that you have to bring 400 tons at 50 meters under the water in very rough conditions, so it costs. But when you know how to make it industrially, it's one of the best energy that you can find on the market.
Renewable gold, so to say. Thank you very much, everybody.
Merci.
Thank you, Jonathan Hodges. Thank you, Drew BLAXLAND, not wave but tidal energy developer. Jérôme GUERET, voilà. Et Olivier GUIRAUD. Merci beaucoup. Merci. Thank you for listening.